welcome in. Thank you so much for joining us on the CCA California podcast. My name's Chris, your host, the Assistant Director for CCA Cal. Today we've got a very, very special guest, personally one of my favorite people, Mr. Davey Brown, and we'll be talking to him shortly. But first, hey, I just want to say thank you guys so much for the warm welcome. We just launched the podcast officially on all of our social media and all that good stuff. Really, really appreciate all the support and really hope to grow this thing, and it's going to be fun. It's going to be really, really fun. Don't forget, if you want to hear somebody specific or if you have a question that we'd like to answer, anything at all, make sure to send me an email, chrisa@ccacalifornia.org. Once again, my email is chrisa@ccacalifornia.org, and we certainly would appreciate it. Also, don't forget, we have a website, ccacalifornia.org, for all of your information regarding CCA California. And don't forget to like us on Facebook at Coastal Conservation Association of California and Instagram, CCA California. Also, since we launched, don't forget to leave a 5-star review if you like it. Anyways, getting to Davey Brown. Davey, how are you, my friend?
I'm doing well. Thanks for having me.
Hey, thanks for being here. I know we've known each other for quite a bit. I think the first time I met you was at the ISC the ISC show a couple years ago or so.
Yeah, that could have been it up in Sacramento.
Yeah, which is actually going on right now.
I remember you kept coming by the booth and asking for my autograph. It was a little embarrassing, but fun.
Yeah, that sounds about right. But Davey Brown, we'll get to Okuma and Fish Lab and Soft Steel in a little bit, but tell us a little bit about yourself, man. What's Davey Brown all about?
I am just a guy who likes to fish. Born and raised Southern California. I used to pinhead on a couple of boats down out of Long Beach. I used to work on the Annie B barge, if anybody remembers that, when it used to leave out of Belmont Shore there at the Belmont Pier. I just grew up fishing. My dad lived up in Big Bear. Spent a lot of time trout fishing up there. All the local boats, half day, 3/4 day, overnighters. I started at Okuma half a year life ago, so I've been there for 15 years already.
Wow.
I started there as a regional sales manager. I'm in the marketing side now. It's just a lot of fun. Anything around fishing. I've been kayak fishing for probably 25 years. I was one of the early adopters in that, those crazy guys that would get out on a piece of plastic, float tubing in my teens out down in Newport Harbor in Long Beach. That was a long time ago.
Nice.
That was fun. But yeah, anywhere around water you can find me.
Nice. Very cool, man. I know, actually, let's kind of dive into there. I've known you for a while as a kayak fisherman. You definitely enjoy it. You also were, I think, really the one that kind of taught me, or at least got me into throwing the A-rig, which I know you love doing too. I know. We were actually just talking about that last week or 2 weeks ago about potentially throwing the A-rig at Cedros.
Oh, you
of
have
all
to.
Places.
Yeah, you have to. If you want to get that thing chewed up, that's the way to go. And don't be surprised if you come up with 3 calico bass, big calico bass at a time.
I was going to say, have you done that at Cedros?
Yeah, I have actually. It's pretty amazing. If you get up and around those kelp and those calico bass are on the chew, yeah, there's no doubt you're going to get 2 or 3 at a time sometimes.
Nice. And I'm sure they're probably all massive too.
You can get some good ones. Yeah, that's for sure. If you get a couple of big ones on there, plan on going through some plastics and plan on going through some A-rigs. So bring a few extras down with you.
Nice. And where do you typically kayak fish up here in California?
I do everywhere. So I'll spend a lot of time up at Silverwood. As a matter of fact, I even got my striped bass socks on right now.
I see that.
Spend a lot of time at the local lakes. A lot of time here at Lake Paris, Silverwood, anywhere I can get out. I do sit on top kayak, so it's a pedal kayak. So you cannot go to places like Diamond Valley or Skinner. Anywhere that has skin contact, you're not allowed to go into. But so on the lake side, so anywhere I can get the kayak out, I'll be there. On the saltwater side, I used to spend a lot of time down in La Jolla, spent a lot of time in Mission Bay, San Diego Bay. Up here, I live in Orange County, so a lot of time in Dana Point, up and down the coast there. Newport Bay's like home water to me. I spent a lot of time in Long Beach fishing the breakwall. You'll see a couple knuckleheads out there fishing the breakwall.
I was going to say, I think I've seen plenty of videos of you at the breakwall.
I love the breakwall. I'll fish it day, I'll fish it night from the kayak. It can get a little hairy there at night. But it's a magical place, that's for sure.
Nice. Well, sticking with kayak fishing, I've never really I was actually thinking about this morning. I don't think I've ever fished out of a kayak before, and I know it's quite expensive for sure, but also it's interesting. Do you have any recommendations or any? I know that's kind of a loaded question, but any recs for like people just starting out or wanting to get into it at all?
Nothing specific, to take a line from Nike, just do it. Just get out and fish. The gear that you have, take it with you, whatever you got. If you have some light trout setups, even fishing, say, Newport Harbor, a spinning setup will work perfect for you. Something like a 3,000 size reel, 8-pound test, 7-foot rod. It could be your trout setup. It could be a light inshore setup. But just something very basic. It can be very expensive. The boats that we are running now have full electronics. They'll have a full bait take on it. Some of these kayaks are $5,000-$6,000 now. You can get into some lesser priced kayaks. It depends what you want, pedal or paddle, or even some of the motors nowadays. But as far as gear racks, just grab a handful of plastics, grab some grub baits, grab some paddle tail swim baits, and go out and have some fun. Go fish the pilings. Go just fish the eelgrass beds. It's so magical. A great place to start, if you happen to be in Southern California, start out in Mission Bay. Run out to Fiesta Island. You can drive out on the sand. You can launch your kayak right in the sand. There's a place called the Bowling Pin. Fish between the shore and the bowling pin and just throw some plastics, throw some swim baits, throw some crankbaits. It's a great place. Spotted bay bass. You're going to get halibut in there. You're going to get even some calico bass and sand bass. It's great.
I was going to say, a couple of years ago, I think a couple of years ago in 2020, we held some kayak fishing tournaments in the bays and all that. And, Okuma and yourself, super, super supportive of all of our different events going on. I have to say I was on the mothership or the safety boat or whatever you want to call it a couple times. And we often found you, not to give away your spots, but we often found you in some quite unique places, that's for sure.
Yeah, what's really cool about the kayak is you can get into some unique places. There's some, there's obviously the SWBA and some other great indoor saltwater bass tournament series. But on the kayak, you can really get in tight. Some places that you cannot get. Some of the most underrated spots. And, a friend of mine, Brandon Cotton, who used to work at Okuma with me, he and I used to float tube quite a bit. But one of the real productive spots is like Newport Harbor if you go towards the back end of the docks. So not necessarily fishing the end of the docks out in the deeper water, but getting in towards the shallow side of it, right up against the seawalls. When that tide's high and it's moving, you want some tidal movement there, but on that shallower side, on those pilings, they just don't get touched, and they can be very productive. And, fishing that inshore, that inside side, you can really do that on the kayak and the float tube, harder on the skiff or the boats. So, getting into those unique spots, that's one of the advantages of sitting on a piece of plastic.
Nice. Very cool. And that actually makes sense where you've got, you're not going as fast as a skiff or anything like that, but you have certainly a lot of mobility in where you go.
Yeah, certainly. If you're, if you're on a paddle kayak, and even if you have a pedal kayak, you always have a paddle with you, but you can really maneuver, you can get in tight. Of course, be respectful to people's boats out there. A lot of folks live on those boats. You'll get a bunch of knuckleheads out there who are bouncing lead heads off of people's boats, and gel coat doesn't necessarily like that, especially when you're around $1 million boats.
Sure.
But yeah, get in tight. You can fish it. It's a cool place.
Very cool, man. Very cool. So most recently in 2019, I believe, we started the Inland Empire chapter of CCA. And you're a big part of that.
We did. It's a cool experience. I became a part of it because Okuma is actually out in Ontario, California, part of the Inland Empire. At Okuma, we've got 11 lifetime members, a bunch of yearly members on top of that. I happen to be a lifetime member as well.
Thank you.
And, I'm proud to be part of that Inland Empire team. I don't live in the Inland Empire. I live actually in Orange County, but since I'm working up there, I spend the majority of my day every day for the last 15 years up that way. And it's not a coastal area, obviously, but we know that folks that live out in the Lake Elsinore area or just Ontario or Rancho or anywhere else, those guys are all saltwater fishermen as well.
Yeah.
And that's what CCA is all about, right? Is getting these guys fishing, supporting the coast, and, out in the Inland Empire, taking care of those guys as well.
Yeah, and since then, I've been in I guess semi-regularly with us having a chapter up there. There's a lot of saltwater anglers out there. You'd be surprised.
There are a lot, and there's a few good clubs out there. what is it, the ISWAC,
Yep, ISWAC is one of them.
which is the Inland Saltwater Anglers Association or something like that. Riverside Club of Saltwater or something.
Yeah.
I don't know. There's a whole bunch, but
I know which one you're talking about.
yeah,
I
just-
can't remember the name.
yeah, of course. And then to show that, I mean, there's just that many anglers out there that want to saltwater fish and do. Just because you live 35 miles, out here in Lake Elsinore, you just pop over the road there and you're right in Dana Point. So it's an easy access. Seems far, but it's right there.
Yep. So you serve as the vice president of the chapter. Very, very.
I do.
Yep, very productive chapter, and also big help with all that you did for last year's banquet out there. Their very first one at the Okuma parking lot. That one was fun.
That was a good time. That was it was cool that we were able to do it. We were as the chapter, we were going between the parking lot over at the Accurate facility over here in Corona or the Okuma facility. And we ended up at Okuma, which was awesome. It worked out great. We've got a big, large parking lot area, big tented area there. We had the restrooms. This year we went with that Oktoberfest theme, which was a lot of fun. Some good like German style food. We had some good pretzels. We had all kinds of good stuff. The turnout, unfortunately happened to be right during a COVID time, but we still had 120-ish people that came to that event. Lots of great prizes, baskets. Shay from Stoked on Fishing was our speaker, and he talked to us a little bit. It was really cool, fun experience.
Yeah, and to give you kind of a sense at how much Okuma's bought into CCA last year. Well, Davey, you want to tell the story about the first responders?
Yeah, so we've got a lot of first responders that come out to the Okuma facility, or they did when we were open to the public anyway. But they would come on out, they would support us. Twice a week we'd have a giant fire engine that would pull up outside. All the firemen would come in. The Ontario Police Department would always stop on by. Just great supporters of Okuma. So giving back, we wanted to support these guys as well. So what we did was that if your station happened to buy a table, Okuma would then purchase an additional table. What did we like maybe an additional 7 tables or something, 5 to 7 tables on top of what the first responders bought. So, out of our 16 or 17 tables that we had purchased out there, another 5 or 6 were first responders. It was a great little program.
Yeah, it was certainly was it. Unfortunately that day, because first responders, the nature of their business, they ended up getting called. So turnout wasn't quite, not all those people did show up, but we were certainly grateful to have the ones that did show up.
It was great, yeah. We talking to those guys afterwards, as you mentioned, they are first responders. So if there's a car accident, a fire, those are the guys that are going to be there. And there happened to be a couple of big things going on that night. Of course, it was a Saturday, so busier time for all the first responders anyway. Mm-hmm. But, it was great. It was a good program to have. Those guys were excited. Hopefully we can do something similar this upcoming year.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to this year, to all of our chapter banquets, IE being included. This year we've kind of transitioned out of the Oktoberfest theme, but we're doing a beer fest. That's going to be really, really fun.
I'm excited about the beer fest. Inland Empire is not necessarily known as a big mecca for breweries, but dude, it's a big mecca for breweries. There's breweries up and down the 15 freeway, in through Corona. Mm-hmm. There's wineries everywhere, but it's going to be fantastic, man. I'm excited.
Yeah, me too. That's going to be October 1st of this year, so a little bit of time to go, but I know we just had our first planning meeting last week, I think, about it, and I'm already super pumped for it.
We are super pumped. One of the big supporters has been that Skyland Brewery over there in Corona, right off of, Main Street, I think it is? Mm-hmm. Skyland Brewery, they stepped up. They gave us a bunch of beer last year. I'm sure they're going to do the same. We actually have our first quarterly meeting coming up on March 31st at Skyland. So if anybody out there is listening and they want to stop on by, we've got Todd Manser. He's one of the Okuma product testers and pro staffer. He's going to be there talking yellowtail fishing and white sea bass. Spring fishing. It's what we all do. Todd Manser, if you don't know him, he's a commercial swordfish guy, but his family is part of the family that runs Dana Wharf Sport Fishing down there. So he's grown up in Southern California. He knows that fishery like the back of his hand. He's going to be a fun speaker. We just had him out at the, Ammo Brothers? Mm-hmm. He did a guest speaking spot out there and talked about fishing Mag Bay, and it was just a captive audience. It's such a good time.
Really cool guy. Really
he is
cool.
A good guy.
Yeah. Thank you for mentioning that, because I was about to say that. But March 31st, guys, Skyland Aleworks in Corona, I believe.
Yep.
And it's going to be fun. It's going to be really fun. I know last year, or 2 years ago, I think, we had Dave Hansen He was fun. It was really cool, lively crowd, all that. Looking forward to this year's.
Dave Hansen is a goofball, but he puts on a good little expo, and he had he had a lot of people there and captive little audience. This year we're planning on doing a bunch of giveaways as well from the CCA. I know Okuma's going to step up and donate some prizes. CCA always gives away a great selection of prizes from all their sponsors as well. So it's gonna be a good time.
Absolutely.
And I think they have beer there, so I'm not positive.
I would hope so, considering that
True.
they're a brewery.
True.
But anyways, yeah, it's unbelievable the amount of support that we've seen from Okuma and all of our different sponsors as well. So really, really fortunate to have everyone backing us because we can't do it alone. We certainly can't.
We can't. That Inland Empire chapter, I want to say there's 6 or 7 of us that are on that board. Al Barker's the president, myself as the vice, and then we've got several great people that are helping us out as well. But we're always looking for more. So if you happen to be in the Inland Empire and you want to be part of the CCA California, it's not a IE versus the rest of the territories. It's all about California fishing. There's a lot going on right now with CCA, as you all know. The CARB emissions, big deals happening. There's everybody wants to shut us down, right? So what we're trying to do is keep fishing. Like I said, I'm 48 years old. I've been fishing for 47 of those years out here in Southern California. I want to keep going.
Yeah, as do I, and as do all of us too, for sure. And you're right. We have 7 local chapters in California, all kind of working together, all for the same cause and trying to, steer the same way.
Yeah, for sure.
Pretty much.
And what I was going with that, I guess, is so if you're in the Inland Empire and you want to be a part of that, reach out to Chris, reach out to myself. We'll happy to have you on board. We're always looking for more board members and more ideas and more industries. You don't have to be working in the fishing industry. I happen to, but the other guys that are on the board don't. So anybody that we can get to help us out is awesome. We can always use it, and they're a fun time.
Yeah,
fun group.
Yeah. The seminars are always a really good time. I mean, we have plenty of charters as well and all that stuff. And speaking of charters, we just announced we're having a new members charter for the IE chapter May 6th and 7th.
Awesome.
On El Dorado.
It's going to be a lot of fun. We got to do that last year. You don't have to be a member to go join that charter. It's called the new member charter. Well, of course, we're looking for new members for California. Last year we did that on the Pride out of Dana Point. We had a great turnout. The fishing was really good for some of us, like really good. This year is going to be out in the El Dorado out of Long Beach. It's another great boat. I'm sure we'll head to San Clemente Island. Hopefully the white sea bass, some yellowtail will be around at that time. That May time frame can be phenomenal out there. And heck, who knows? The way it's going, there could be some bluefin along the way.
I know.
There could be some yellowfin. I mean, heck, who knows?
And what Davey was referring to earlier about some of us having really good fishing, you were the jackpot winner last year with a massive yellowtail.
That's right. I forgot about that. Yeah, I did get lucky enough to get a good one on the yo-yo. I love fishing the yo-yo. It's so stinking effective. But that was, we cut down there and the captain yelled down and said, there's some fish down deep. I went and grabbed the yo-yo jig, dropped it straight down. About the third crank I was bit. Luckily enough, that was that ended up being the big fish of the trip. It was close. There were some big fish. I forgot what it was, like 31 pounds or something like that. But there was a lot of fish right in that 30-pound range. It was cool.
Yeah, and I will say with the jackpot and all that stuff, you actually donated it back to CCA. So
I do.
props to you.
Yeah, I'm happy to do that. We get the opportunity to fish quite a bit, especially in the position that I work with Okuma. So, putting that back and giving it to CCA. Of course, actually, I donated half of it to the crew because they were excellent out on the boat, and the rest went to CCA. And I'm always happy to do that.
Absolutely. And, all the charters, I always say, like the charters that we do with CCA, with all of our other chapters and all that, it's not really, like you don't have that one guy who sits in the corner and is just bringing everyone else's mood down or anything like that.
Yeah, Darren couldn't make it this year, so.
Yeah. Yeah. And also, I forgot to mention the first couple episodes, but we have a person who's a big part of the CCA Cal podcast, Darren Cryle. He's part of the Inland Empire chapter who's sitting here with us all the time. Darren, I don't know if your mic is on, but if you want to say hello.
How's it going?
Yep, so that's Darren. So anyway, back to Davey Brown. Last year's charter, it was awesome.
It was. I'm excited. The amount of raffle prizes and just giveaways that were on that boat was awesome. Okuma did a bunch, but so did everybody else. Everybody stepped up. If you didn't walk away with 2 or 3 pieces of swag, you kind of missed out. Yeah,
and it's all limited load too, especially this year with the El Dorado being a bigger boat and I think we're only limiting it to 25 guys.
Wow.
Yeah, it's
That's a
going to
lot
be
of
awesome.
rail space.
Yeah, and Okuma has been gracious enough to sponsor the trip again, so thank you for that.
Of course, we're excited to do it. We're going to give out line to all the anglers. You're probably going to walk away with some Fish Lab jigs. And, of course, the raffle prizes on top of that. I'm sure we'll do some rods, some reels. And, of course, everything CCA kicks in. You got a really good chance of walking away with some really cool stuff.
Oh, yeah, for sure. And just as a reminder, this year's trip is going to be May 6th and 7th, departing on the 6th out of Long Beach Sport Fishing on the El Dorado. And you can actually go on our website, ccacalifornia.org, and book your spot today. Like I said, limited load, so spots are going to go quick. Sure hope to see you there, for sure.
That's a Friday night, right? Friday night, Fish Saturday?
Yep, Friday night,
Perfect.
Fish Saturday, get off work, head down to Long Beach, and you're there. You're fishing with us, which is going to be a fun trip. Let's switch gears here. You represent Okuma Fishing USA and all that. You want to give us the elevator pitch? I know Okuma does it does so much for CCA California in terms of sponsorship, in terms of they're actually a founding sponsor too.
We are one of the founding sponsors of CCA California. We're proud to be a part of that. We've been a sport fishing manufacturer based in California for, I think this is our 26th year here in the United States. Okuma is actually a Taiwanese company. They used to produce OEM product. So some of the reels you probably have in your arsenal from when you were growing up were built by Okuma, but they would have a competitor's name on it, which is pretty interesting. So they've been around as Okuma for 26 years in the United States. It's really cool. One of the flagship reels that you're going to see on most of the boats now is the Makaira lever drag reels. Phenomenal reels. Those reels actually just had their 10th year anniversary last year. So it's amazing how fast time is going.
Wow, 10 years.
It goes quick. But Okuma's it's a fun place to work. I know you mentioned I'm one of the representatives. I'm actually the senior marketing specialist for the company. I started off, as I mentioned earlier, as one of the sales reps. I do get to travel the country. I do a lot of the filming for Okuma. We do a lot of the how-to videos. Jonathan's the other guy in the marketing department. He and I will usually travel the country and get a lot of the video work done. It's fun. Marketing's it's a fun side. It's more of the glamorous side than sitting down with our retailers, which I do miss that quite a bit as well. We've got, especially here in Southern California, but everywhere in the country, the buyers and the retailers are awesome people. Just to sit down and hear their stories. You think of so much that you do yourself fishing, but now I'm at a retailer up in Minnesota and we're talking about ice fishing. Man, I'm a kid born and raised in Southern California where it's going to be 78 degrees out here January 21st today. These guys are at -6, cutting a hole in some ice. So it's neat to experience the different parts of the world as well.
I was going to say, that's kind of, with being in marketing with Okuma and all that stuff, it's not just in Southern California. It's all over the place that you kind of have to go to, and you get to go experience some new fisheries, I bet.
We do. Okuma's a big company. There's, all the competitors that are out there, but Okuma's a little bit of something to everybody. We produce, we're one of the largest salmon and steelhead rod manufacturers for the Pacific Northwest. If you get up to the Midwest, the line counters are the king in that market for your walleye trolling and salmon trolling. You get up in the Northeast, we're one of the top brands for surf rods. You get down into Florida, we've got a full selection for Florida. On the bass side, we've getting back into that real big. I think we've got 4 or 5 new rods of lines of bass rods. We've got the new Hakai bait cast reel that launched at ICAST last year. That thing right there is a game changer in itself. But it's a little of something to everybody. California, easy to think about with the Komodo and the Makaira and the Kavala and the new Alijos that's about to hit again, thinking that that's our big market. But we're all around the country. So we've got to get out there. We're a small bunch of people. Our entire management staff at Okuma is about 7 or 8 people. They're all diehard fishermen. Doug Lasco's the president. He's also a board member for California, right?
Yep,
CCA?
state board member, also part of the executive committee
He's
as
part
well.
of the executive committee for CCA, so he's traveling the country with CCA, talking good CCA stuff, but he's the president. He's a diehard fisherman. We're all diehard fishermen. So, we're a small enough company. We're a large company, but we're a small enough company that if something comes up and we need to zig when we should have zagged on a product, or if there's something that needs to happen, maybe there's a lineup of rods that's missing a particular action, we can bend and make that happen pretty quickly, which is nice.
Very cool. We were kind of going into products there and all that. I know last year you let me borrow a couple of Makairas on a trip, a bluefin trip, and I tell you, man, those were bulletproof. I pull on, I think, 2 60 to 70 pound fish with the Macaira 20 and the 30. I mean, it's like catching a bass on those things. They're awesome.
It really is. That reel, when those came out, that was an absolute game changer for that lever drag market. With the pull bar drag system, you have no pressure, so you can go to full and still have complete free spool on that thing. The drag on those is phenomenal, right? You can get 100 plus pounds of drag on those larger size reels. You were talking about that 60 to 80 pound stuff. You can catch those on those little 10 size Macairas. There's enough drag and enough pressure, and they're so well built that it's just a game changer. I know a lot of big sport fishing boats out here in Southern California are actually going to the Macairas as their boat setups, which is awesome to see.
I was just about to say, I don't think I've ever seen so many Macairas on the sport boats last year than ever before.
It's great. Of course, with everything going on in the world right now, the shipping, we talk about all this and containers and lead times and everything else, but it's so hard to get product right now that we're just waiting. But, we've got hundreds and hundreds of Macairas that are on the way. They're actually on the water. That should be here real quick. But most of that stuff is pre-sold. It's awesome. It's retailers want it. They can't get enough. It's a good problem to have.
Funny story about that. So last year, I think like in August or something, and it was right in the middle of when the supply chain, I mean, we're still kind of in it right now, but the supply chain issues were kind of front and center of all the media and all that. And we did a kids trip out of Long Beach, and it was kind of funny sitting next to you and just basically pointing out saying, yeah, that ship has Macairas, that's got my Cavalas, all that stuff. It's kind of funny.
Yeah, it was nuts. We had, at one point there was 150 boats sitting offshore there just waiting to get some spots. Of course that was facetious pointing at there's some Macairas and there's some Cavalas and whatever over there. But, we're still running about an 8-month lead time. So when I place an order for the new Komodo reels, it's 8 months by the time. So if I place it right now, we're not getting that stuff till August or September. It's just a crazy time, and that's just the supply chain. That's for everybody out there, all competitors of ours. Just about everybody's building overseas, so it doesn't matter where it's coming from. Japan, China, Taiwan. It's long lead times. If you see it at your store, buy it. That's what it comes down to.
I was going to say, I've been kind of recommending all of my friends and everyone that's close to me saying, hey, if you want gear this year, or if you want some new gear for the summer and all that stuff, and you see it, you gotta take it up.
You do. Yeah, you do. It's, we're slowly getting caught up on the Okuma side, which has been great. We were able to actually forecast pretty well this last year. We would get, maybe 3 containers a month on, pre-pandemic. This year we've been getting about 3 a week so far, which is, that's a lot of containers of product coming in. Like I said, a lot of that stuff is pre-sold, so we're able to fill the pipeline quite a bit all around the country, which has been great. But yeah, get it. If you're in the store and you see it, get it. Yeah,
for sure. And I know I think maybe back in August as well, I went on a 2-day trip. I called you up saying, hey, either me or someone else, basically I needed a new setup for a 2-day trip coming up and all that stuff. And, luckily you're a good friend of mine. You basically came through with that, and you actually got me a Kavala. And I tried it out. I've been trying it out. Really, really cool little reel. And it's got all of almost like the bells and whistles, kind of like Macaira. But, I mean, you can do it for smaller fish or even bigger fish, too.
Those Cavalas are awesome little reels. They're so compact. There's only 4 sizes within that whole series. There's the 5, there's a 5 narrow, which is about the width of your thumb. Then there's the 12 and the 12 narrow. So it's, that's it. And, of course, there's left hand as well in that series. But little tiny machined aluminum lever drags, they're fantastic reels. And then the big one this year, we've tried to release it for 2 years, is the new Alijos reel. So that thing, I know you mentioned the mini Macaira, but this new Alijos reel is actually the mini Macaira. We went back and reworked it. We brought them out. We found some issues right away, so we stopped production. We went back and completely retooled that reel, and it is now literally a mini Macaira. It's the same sizes. There's actually a 5, a 12, and a 16 in that series. But it's, we call it the mini Macaira because it actually now has the thrust bearing in it, which is one of the big things that the Macairas have that sets it apart from other competitors. But this little Alijos reel has the thrust bearing. It's cool. I mean, imagine a Macaira in that little tiny 5 size.
That's awesome.
Super light, super compact, tremendous amount of drag. But we're hoping to get those here in the next few weeks.
I was just about to ask.
I think by the end of February, you should see them in all retailers that ordered them at least. But they're getting close, and it's something that we're excited about. I know I cover all the social media for Okuma as well, so questions that come through, if you ever have any questions, feel free to DM them over and I'll answer them. Any questions that ever get answered come across my fingers, but the questions about the Alijos reels that come across are awesome. There's some excitement.
Nice. And you'll probably want to get those before they're all gone too.
Yeah, they'll probably go fairly quick. I'm sure we didn't order super heavy on that just because it was such a delayed product. But, all your key Southern California retailers will have them. They've all ordered them, and there's a lot of excitement.
Very cool, man. And a part of Okuma, you also have two other brands, Fish Lab and Soft Steel. Tell us a little bit about those.
We do. So Okuma is our parent company, rods and reels. This 2 years ago, I guess now, we actually acquired Soft Steel USA, which was, for you long-range guys, that's Tony Garza's old line company. We've been working with Tony for quite a few years. He's been one of our product testers. He was on part of that product testing team for the Macaira. But he was, he's ready to retire. He just wants to go fishing. That guy is on the water more than anybody I know. He's got so many 10 days and 16 days on the Intrepid, on the, so many different boats. But anyway, so he's ready to retire. He wants to fish. He was going to sell the Soft Steel line, and we said, hey, what a perfect combo, right? We've got the reels that we need out there. Why not acquire a line company? A lot of it was a little bit more selfish than anything else, that we know that we can get our stuff spooled out. We can combo up some sales, which is great. But the stuff that we came up with has been awesome. We've been working with Tony. The one big key product that was introduced last year was that stretchable fluorocarbon. So fluorocarbon, as you know, doesn't have any stretch to it, very abrasion resistant, but no stretch. So when you're fishing a lot of these big bluefin tuna that have been happening in Southern California, you can rip those hooks out. Get, that, especially on a circle hook, the side of the mouth, you can wear a hole, that thing can come out. But with that new fluoro stretch line, you get a little bit of give. That's the one big thing. A lot of long rangers have always been just using monofilament over fluorocarbon leaders because you have that stretch. And that fluoro stretch has that stretch. It's phenomenal. You can really button down your hooks. I think you get 25% more hook strength just because of the line being able to stretch and really cinch down those knots. It's cool stuff.
And that stretch really does make a difference too.
It really does. You think about your heavy hook sets, or if you're out deep and long line, especially on braid where you're using a short leader. I'm a short leader guy. I'm usually using about a rod length. So I 7 to 10 feet of leader. That braid obviously has no stretch. So when those big fish hit it and they hit it hard, a lot of times you're going to get a break off. And, that happens. But if you have got a little bit of a shock leader on there, like that fluoro stretch, it just makes a tremendous amount of difference.
Very cool, man. Very cool.
And then on the Fish Lab, on the Fish Lab side, so that's our bait company. We actually created that absolutely from scratch, coming about 3 years ago now. We used to be the distributor of Savage Gear. I know you had Kevin Nakata on a couple weeks back. Mm-hmm. But we parted ways with those guys a few years ago. And we created our own bait company called Fish Lab Tackle. It's been a lot of fun for us. It's starting out it was mostly bass. The product development manager is Mike Bennett. He's the hog. What does he call himself? The hog whisperer, the hog tamer. I don't know, but he's a big swim bait guy. He's been a Southern California swim bait guy for absolutely years. Big striper, big largemouth bass. He's got a lot of double-digit bass. So everything we introduced right away was primarily for that bass market, big swim baits, big glide baits. Then the second year, we introduced a bunch of saltwater baits. We've got stuff like the Carnata jigs, flutter jigs, slow pitch jigs. Then this last year, so the 2021 ICAST, I guess it was, we came up with a bunch of stick baits. We've got all these surface baits. I know I fished them a little bit on the kids' trip, and we were just getting absolutely whacked out there, but they've accounted for a lot of big yellowfin tuna. There's some big poppers out there for the big bluefin guys. There's some phenomenal baits.
So I was going to say, I think it's been said on this podcast for sure. I switched almost primarily to artificial baits, a lot of hard baits, stick baits, and all that stuff. Those Carnata jigs, I've used them a couple times. Those things work, man. They
do. It's flat fall style jigs have been so popular over the last couple of years that you wanted something with some erratic fall to it. It was the thing a couple years ago. It's still the thing. This year went more knife jigs than anything else, but those Carnatas, they give off such a wide kick when you're dropping that thing down. Basically, you just pitch it out, you let it fall, and erratic fall they flutter out. When they flutter out and they get that real big wide kick, you're spending more time in the fish zone. So like a knife jig falls fast. You say your fish are in that 20 to 30 fathoms, so they got 60 feet wide of fish. You want your jig to be in there as much time as possible. If you drop a knife jig, dropping that 60 feet could last you about 2 seconds on a straight heavy jig. But on a Carnata jig, a flat fall style jig, an erratic jig, you're going to spend more time. That thing kicks out, it wiggles through. It might take 10, 15 seconds, 20 seconds even to get down through that wad of fish. And those fish are just looking for something that looks like it's wounded, and that's exactly what those things do.
Great point there. Spending more time in basically that zone when when the skipper always tells you, okay, guys, 20 fathoms, 30 fathoms, or 200 feet, or whatever. Especially in this bluefin era, that's pretty important.
They are. Those fish are on the move, right? They're not. They radar sonar down there and they see those fish at 60 fathoms. Those fish aren't just hanging out. They're not. Those bluefin aren't just sitting there waiting for some bait to go by their face. They're actually on the move. Those things are moving. That's why those boats got the side scan, because those schools of fish are just on the move the whole time. But as those schools are coming through, it might be, 60, as I mentioned, 60 feet deep of fish, but it might be 60 yards wide. So there's a lot of fish in those schools. It could be bigger than that. You've seen some of those things that are just gigantic schools of fish. But the more time your bait can spend in that zone when those fish are swimming by, the better. If it just zips by their face and they don't see it, it could be a little more difficult. But, it happens to be the hot baits right now.
Nice. And do those Carnata jigs come in different sizes, or is just one size?
They do. Now? They come from I want to say there's an 80 gram up to a 300 gram. Those bigger 250s and 300s come rigged with that big mustad hook on it. A lot of guys will add a couple stinger hooks to them. But they're great. The one exciting bait that we introduced this last year is called the Bio Flyer. Did you see that thing by chance?
Yeah, that was really cool.
So everybody knows the flying baits, using the frozen flyers, the yummies. There's so many great artificials out there, but getting the flying fish now, you can't net them anymore. They changed the regulations where you actually have to catch them like on a sabiki rig, which, catching flying fish on a sabiki rig is pretty darn tough.
Yeah.
So it's a little difficult. You can buy them at, $40 or $50 for a frozen flyer. There's lots of people out there that get them. They sell them, and $40, $50 a piece for one piece of bait. That's nuts. But for a fish of a lifetime, heck, I'd pay $50.
Yeah.
So this Bio Flyer that Fish Lab came out with, it's actually a little harness that's got mylar wings that stick out, and it looks exactly like a flying fish. So you can go get yourself a scoop of mackerel, jig up some mackerel. You can you attach this little set with a little rubber band, little pin system, and it attaches right to your mackerel or mullet. If you're on the East Coast, you're fishing for sailfish, but you attach that right to your mackerel, and now you got a flyer. It's so cool. They're going to run you about $10, but $10 instead of $60, it's nuts.
That's so cool. And I just noticed on the website, it's out of stock.
Oh, they're not. Yeah, so they haven't shown up yet. So it's a brand new thing for iCast. That first shipment, I want to say we're a few weeks out on that. They actually could be on the water now as well. But as we're getting into this bluefin season, this is going to be a key player right here. It's something we're very excited about. The testing has been phenomenal on these things. They're drawing in big strikes, and I'm excited to be able to release some of the footage of these just monsters coming out of the water. You ever seen a Volkswagen come out of the water? That's exactly what it looks like.
I'll look that up on YouTube all day, every day, and it's super, super exciting, no matter what.
Yeah, it's pretty cool.
That's very cool, man. I mean, it's basically almost like a set of wings for, a mackerel or anything.
That's exactly what it is.
That's pretty unique.
And you just rig it to your kite or your balloon, whatever you happen to be doing, and it looks just like a flyer skitter along. The cool thing is you're using a live bait. You can use a dead mackerel, but you can use a live mackerel. So that live mackerel, as it's kind of popping and wiggling on the surface there, as mackerels do, they're nuts, man. They're going crazy and splashing. This thing draws in some big strikes from down below. It's pretty cool. It's exciting.
That's awesome, man. So, obviously we talked about the BioFlyer and a couple other jigs and all that. Davey Brown, when you're going, we'll start with tuna, the big bluefin and all that. But when you're going tuna fishing this year in 2022, what are you bringing? What's your go-to setup?
I am going to. So I'll bring several things. So like if I'm going to bring, say, 5 setups on the boat, I will always have a couple of Komodos with me. I'll have some Komodo 350 and 450s. Those are our low profile reels. You're talking 25 to 30 pounds of drag out of those little guys. They've accounted for several big tuna themselves. I know the captains, people cringe, and there's the Tranks, there's the Lexa, there's the Komodo, there's several out there. But those things are awesome. You come across some kelp patties and you got some big yellowtail around, or even some of the fish that are around the kelp patties. Using that Komodo can be just a game changer. You can cast that thing a mile, get it out there, throw the iron, have some fun. Next thing I'm going to bring is a star drag reel. So I usually have the Tesoro, either the 10 or the 12. Both exact same diameter. One's just a little bit wider than the other. Depends what I grab. If I'm in the garage and I grab one or the other, both of them are going to work phenomenal. They both got the same amount of drag. I want to say 22 pounds out of those guys. But that's going to be for throwing iron, throwing some live bait. And then I'll have a couple of lever drag reels with me. If I know there's going to be some big bluefin around, I'll bring that 20 and that 30. Those will be my flutter style jig setup, so those carnadas. Or I also fish the sinker rig quite a bit. That's been a great setup for this as well. You know, that's going to have 130 pound braid with however big of a leader I want to put on there. If the captain tells you 80 pounds, don't go less than 80 pounds. They tell you 100 pounds, don't go less than 100 pounds. But have it set up, be ready to go. You know, and if it's more local fun fish, if it's that 50, 60 pound stuff we're seeing around, I'll grab those Kavalas, that 5 size. That's perfect for that. Plenty of drag, plenty of capacity.
Yeah, and we haven't even talked about the PCH rods, which are just bulletproof.
The PCH rods have been incredible for Okuma. These are our Southern Californias. PCH, obviously named after the street because it's our coastal series. There's inshore, there's offshore, and of course our rail rods. So like that 20 and that 30, I'll have those pinned on to the 3X. That 20 I'll usually have on the 3X rod. That 30 I'll have on that 4X rod. Stout rods. You know, nowadays everybody's fishing the rail, so let that rod do the work for you. Nobody's using harnesses anymore. You'll see a couple of the older anglers that still do the harness, and man, that's so comfortable. But everybody's fishing the rail, so you're on one knee, you're bent down, but let that rod do the work, and those PCH rods have been awesome for that.
You know, so with the 20 and the 30 Machaira, realistically, I mean, 20, you know, on the 20 level, you could probably go up to, say, what? 80, almost 100-pound fish.
On that 20 size?
Yeah.
Well, you're catching super cows. I mean, guys are getting 300-pounders on those things. On that 20 size, there's 750 yards of 100-pound braid on that thing.
Yeah.
That's a lot of line. I mean, think how far was that, a quarter mile or something?
Yeah.
But that 20, that's a big reel. That 30 is even a bigger reel. I'm going the 30 just because I have a little bit heavier diameter line on it, and then dropping those big bluefin. You know, there's been some fish over 400 pounds that came up last year. So you just never know. But that 20, you know, in that comfortable 150 to 250 pound range, that 20 is plenty for you.
And it's kind of, it's almost deceiving where, you know, because you have, the Machaira series goes up to
130.
A 130. I mean, that's a whole lot of reel for fish.
That's a lot of reel. You know, if you go up to, PEI, Prince Edward Island up in the northeast, those guys are catching those 1,000-pound bluefin. You see the guys on TV that have the rod on the bent butt, and it's in the rail the whole time, and they're hand lining. You know, that's the size they're fishing, is that either the 80 or the 130. That's a big reel. And especially for the deep drop guys out here in Southern California now, they're looking for that, 50 wide would be your absolute minimum, but that 80 is very not uncommon.
So when it comes to our local fishing here in Southern California for the big bluefin, that 20 size, I mean, it's 20 size is your go-to pretty much.
I like that 20. It's still small enough that it's very comfortable. It's got such a free spool that if you're fishing some bigger sardines, you can get that bait out just a little bit further. The free spool on thing's fantastic. You don't want any drag on your bait as it's swimming away, especially if you're fishing live baits. You don't want any drag. Let that bait get out from the boat. Those fish are not necessarily sitting right under the corner. Look where that captain or the deckhand is actually throwing that bait. If they're chumming in the back left corner, head towards that back left corner, let your bait sail, get it as close to that chum, because those fish know that's what's happening. It's like Pavlov's dogs, right? They're hearing that splash. They know a bait's going to land there. So if you can get your bait as close to that as possible, do it. Those Machairas have so much free spool that you can actually do that. It's great.
Yeah. So your bread and butter, I want to say it's pretty much bass fishing. I know I've seen you with plenty of big calicos and spotties and all that stuff. Am I right? Bass fishing?
I love that bass fishing. I've never got into the SWBA stuff. I used to fish the Plastic Navy events, which was the kayak events, back in the late 90s, where we'd be 200 to 300, 400 anglers out there at some of those events. It was a little early in the kayak scene at that point. It kind of died off for a minute, and now it's just booming again. But I love that calico fishing. I know you and Kevin talked a lot about Cedros. I've been down there with Jeff doing the kayak thing, which is what you guys got to go do. You got to go do the kayaking down there.
Yeah.
But Jeff's a big kayaker as well. Last time I was down there, we had a good group of fishermen that were all kayaks, so we didn't do any skiff trips at all. But we would load up those kayaks, take them to the backside of the island. We would load them up on the skiffs and on the pongas and actually run them up and down the coast and then launch them. But There was one day where Jeff and we got into the thickest kelp bed I've ever seen. The two guys that were with us happened to be from Texas. They went off and they were chasing some little yellowtail around, having a good time. But Jeff and we pulled up. He's got the big Hobie kayaks. We actually pulled up the drives and just let the wind push us across the top of the kelp. So we were what's called potholing. So we would tie on our swim baits, and you come across just a little opening in the kelp, just drop down, and bam! Those calicos would, sorry if I scared whoever's listening there, but those things would just come out and crush your plastics. And we were deep. There was no chance you were going to put your drive back in and pedal back. So you let that wind push you all the way across. And we're talking hundreds of yards of kelp. You're talking kelp that has never seen an angler. It's never seen a bait. Those fish had no reason to be scared of anything. If you had a big enough opening, you can look down and see the calicos nosing out of the kelp. It was so incredible. Experience that you'll never have anywhere else.
Isn't it exciting down there? It's awesome. This could almost be a Cedros podcast with the amount of Cedros talk we've had.
Get some fresh tortillas at that little tortilla factory.
Yep.
Go back to the house. I know Kevin talked all about the food, but holy moly.
Yeah, for sure.
Let's end this thing early and go now.
Yeah, exactly.
Been out there 2 hours.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. When it comes to bass fishing, I know, I got my first Komodo just a couple years ago. By way of you, so thank you. Those Komodos, I love them, especially on my jig stick and almost anything.
They're awesome little reels. That Komodo SS, it's built for saltwater. The SS, of course, is stainless steel, so it's got a stainless steel main gear, pinion gear, and drive shaft. It is a saltwater reel. It comes in that 200 size, which is going to be your perfect little bass size. Then there's also that 350 and that 450 size. Those 200s, that's what I'm fishing when I'm doing all my bay stuff. So if I'm throwing that A-rig, if I'm throwing deep crankbaits in the harbor, any swim baits, that 200 is perfect. And it's still got 20 pounds of drag. They're awesome.
Yeah, I've got the 4 Series, and I take that thing everywhere I go.
Yeah, they're great. We're not afraid to throw those things at tuna. That bigger reel, I've got one here in front of me, and if it's got 50-pound braid on it, you're still getting 350-ish yards of line on there. That's a lot of line.
Plenty of capacity.
And that thing's got 30 pounds of drag or 25 pounds of drag out of that reel. It's crazy.
Yeah, and I know for our island trip, hopefully on the El Dorado, I'm bringing that.
Oh heck yeah! I'll have probably the whole rack of those things.
Yeah, for sure. And typically on the Komodos, what rod are you going to pair with that?
So that particular one, I'll usually pair that up with the PCH inshore. We used to have the SCT, which was our spiral carbon technology rods, the inshore rods. We actually discontinued those, and we slid all of those actions into that PCH inshore. So depending on my rod, I like the longer rods. I like that 8 foot. I used to like the old 8'6" in the SCT, but that 8 foot PCH, you're going to get enough distance where you can really cast that thing. For my inshore, like if I'm fishing Newport Harbor and I want to throw the A-rig or the Long Beach wall, I'll actually fish our old EVX rods. We have that 7'10" extra heavy, perfect rod, long butt. It was a great little setup. So if I'm fishing, for the El Dorado trip, I will definitely pair that up with one of the PCH inshore rods, and they work awesome.
Very cool. I might have to talk to you about that.
Yeah, they're great.
I love, I got the old SCT rod, and dude, I love that thing. That's awesome. I mean, I understand, but those CT rods, pretty badass.
They were awesome. They accounted for a lot of big tuna deaths as well.
Yeah, that's for damn sure. So anyway, speaking of tuna, speaking of bass, I know Okuma has done plenty for this industry and also for the sport boats as well, because Okuma has plenty of sponsored trips throughout the year, almost on a lot of different boats, up from San Diego all the way up to Oxnard.
We do, yeah. We've got several partnerships that we work with. Actually for this, let's go back a little bit. So in general, we would have a lot of sponsored trips throughout the year. On a normal pre-pandemic type of year, we can see 10 to 15 sponsored trips from San Diego up to Oxnard. Excuse me. Last year we narrowed down a little bit because of the the social distancing. We didn't want anybody to get sick. We did do a few sponsored trips this year. I don't currently have really anything on the books. There's one long trip on the Excel that's always happens in I think April. It's like a 16-day trip. That's a long-standing trip, so that's going to happen. We've got the CCA trips coming up, but we've got partnerships with several boats. The Ranger 85, he fishes out of San Diego, as well as Oxnard. Tribute, Mike Pritchard on the Tribute, he's been a big supporter of Okuma for years. Out of Seaforth, we do quite a bit with him. we got several boats, the Poseidon, the Constitution, all awesome Okuma boats. The Excel, if you talk to the Red Rooster 3, he's been fishing the Makairas and the Cortez reels of all things for several years. I don't leave anybody out, but I mean, there's just some great boats that have been fishing Okuma. El Dorado that we're going to go on, that's been an Okuma boat for a while as well. A lot of fun out there. There's some great fishermen that want to fish. And, most of these captains are all fishermen to start with. And they know what a quality product is. They're not going to put something, guys, especially nowadays, the trips are so expensive to get on these boats. They want to put a quality piece of equipment in their hand. They don't want them to have a bad experience and not come back.
Yeah, great point. Great point. And also, you just mentioned, Okuma is going to be sponsoring the Inland Empire chapter boat and charter challenge. That's going to be exciting.
That is a good time. Unfortunately, it canceled last year.
Oh my goodness!
But that was tough. We finally, I guess that was a litany of things, right? I mean, the boat we were supposed to go on ended up not happening. We finally got the correct boat that we were going to get onto, which we're going to use this year. Mm-hmm. But then ended up where we were headed was like 40 to 50 knot winds and 25-foot seas or something stupid.
Yep.
So canceled altogether. But it's going to be a lot of fun. Tell us how that works.
Yeah, so just to refer back to last year, we had 2 boat cancellations and weather at the last minute within 2 weeks of the trip too. So finding a last minute boat, a little bit difficult, but we managed, and ultimately it ended up getting canceled because of weather.
Incredible.
I probably got some more gray hairs out of that whole week for sure. But anyway, for this year, 2022, Charter Challenge, SoCal Charter Challenge is October 9th to the 11th. We've got 4 different boats representing 4 different chapters. The IE chapter is going to be on the Ocean Odyssey this year. We're super stoked on that. The San Diego chapter is going to go back to the Tomahawk. And then we've got the Orange County boat on the Fury once again out of Dana Wharf. And the LA boat's going to be on the Pride out of 22nd Street Landing. Like I said, October 9th to the 11th. It's a 2-day trip this year, so that should be fun. It's always been a day and a half, and all of the pricing, all of the spots are available right now, and they're actually going quick. You guys on the IE boat, they're actually going really, really, really quick.
Good. That's I do kind of feel bad for all the other chapters. Since we all have the IE fishermen, solid group right there. We're gonna have a lot of fun.
Yeah, I was with you guys a couple years ago, and it was a fun group for sure. For sure. When you get people like Davey and Darren and our good friend Steve Ricard all on the same boat, it's a good time.
It is a good time. It's hopefully we can all make it happen this year.
Yeah, absolutely. So, Mr. Brown, your personal outlook for 2022. What do you think things are going to shape up to be for the year of 2022?
Fishing or just everything?
Let's stick with fishing because everything will be here for hours.
Yeah, exactly. Heck, I don't know. Let's see if CCA keeps fighting our battles for us the way they've been doing. We're going to be able to continue fishing, which is what we all want to do. But they kind of predicted an El Nino year this year, so you didn't know what was going to happen. But heck, we've already got bluefin out front here. There's already been some sign of some yellowtail at the islands. It's looking good. Everything's shaping up great. Show wise, as a manufacturer, the shows have been interesting. We were just talking about that before we got started. Okuma itself, we actually canceled out of the January and February shows. I know the ISE show is going on this week up in Sacramento, but I've seen some pictures where just about everybody's pulling out of that show. We did pull out of the Miami Boat Show. That's like mid-February. The next thing I've got on the docket is the Bassmaster Classic out in South Carolina. That's in March. From there, we're just going to kind of play it by ear. ICAST will happen in July out in Orlando. It is Florida, so everything happens in Florida. But, going forward, heck, we've got some great charters that are going to happen with CCA. We've got some great fishermen. Come join us. Let's have some fun.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got plenty of different events. We talked about the banquet coming up at Okuma on October 1st. That's going to be a fun one. And along with all of our 6 other chapters having banquets. This year, we're actually doing it, I guess, the way it kind of should be. Last year, it was kind of a mess with COVID and us being shut down the first half of the year. But I kid you not, guys, we had banquets or events every weekend from like end of July all the way up to November. It was absolutely brutal. But this year, we've actually, hopefully, knock on wood if everything goes well, all of our different events are all spread apart. That's
great. Yeah, that's the way it should be, right? I feel bad for you and Wayne and the guys that have to go every week to every city and every county and from where Bakersfield all the way down.
Yep, Bakersfield South. But, honestly, it's, I couldn't think of a better person in Wayne Cotto to basically take that
he's
job.
all right.
Yeah.
Wayne is a
for
good
sure.
guy. If you guys haven't met Wayne and Chris, get out, shake these guys' hands. There's some great events coming up. The golf tournament was awesome this last year. It was a lot of fun. Mm-hmm. These charters are great. But if you get to go to one of these banquets, I know the Orange County one I've been to several times, and they've done that like casino night. That's a blast. This last year we did that golf tournament with those guys. The San Diego banquet I've been to several times as well, but with hanging out with Ollie and all the team down in San Diego is a fun time as well.
Yeah, it's going to be a very productive, very great year for CCA, I'm predicting, hopefully for 2022.
We're excited.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, Davey, I know we have to get you out of here, but how do we find you? How do we go and pull on some Okuma stuff?
So head to your local retailer if you want to pull on anything. We actually do not have a showroom at the Okuma facility, but if you want to get in touch with me personally, my email is dave@okumafishingusa.com. Head over to okumafishingusa.com. That's the website for Okuma. Fish Lab Tackles, the website for Fish Lab, and Soft Steel USA is the website for the line. It's been great being here. I appreciate the opportunity.
Absolutely, and like I said before, we really appreciate Okuma, all the things that you guys do for CCA. I know we just re-upped their sponsorship for 2022, so thank you again. And I'm really looking forward to a great year with all you guys and everyone at Okuma.
Awesome. Let's see you guys on some boats. Get in touch with Chris.
Absolutely. Thank you, my man. Guys, once again, ccacalifornia.org is our website. Make sure to log on and check us out. You can also like us on Facebook at Coastal Conservation Association of California, and on Instagram, follow us at CCA California. Once again, thank you so much for joining us. Please make sure to go and leave us a great review, hopefully, and rate us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts and all that good stuff. And once again, very much appreciate all of the good vibes and the basically all the love for our launch that just happened this week. My name's Chris. I'm your host, and we will see you guys next week. Thank you so much.